A millionaire freezes when he sees his childhood love mopping the floor of his company. Then he proposes, "I built an empire worth billions, but the moment I saw her mopping the floor of my company, I couldn't breathe." It had been decades since David Hale last saw Anna Carter, his childhood love, the girl who once held his dreams in her hands. He thought she was gone forever, part of a past he had buried beneath glass towers and wealth. But fate had other plans. One ordinary morning, in the polished lobby of his company, their eyes collided again, his in shock, hers in shame. And from that instant, nothing in David's carefully constructed world would ever. David Hale walked through the glass doors of Hale Enterprises, his mind sharp, his schedule tighter than steel. Meetings, contracts, expansion. Every second of his empire ran on precision. And then everything stopped. Across the marble lobby, a woman in a faded cleaner's uniform was pushing a mop across the floor. She paused, straightening her back, and for the first time in decades, David saw the face he thought he'd never see again. Anna Carter, the girl who had once been his whole world, his childhood love, the first person who had believed in him before anyone else did. His throat tightened. Memories slammed into him. Long summer evenings, scribbled letters, promises whispered under an oak tree. Promises broken when she vanished without goodbye. Now here she was scrubbing the floors of his empire. Anna looked up. Her eyes widened in recognition, then quickly dropped as if ashamed to let him see her like this. "Mr. Hale," she said, her tone clipped and formal. The words cut deeper than any rival's insult. Mr. Hale, not David, not the boy she once loved. Just another man in a suit towering above her. He took a step closer, his chest burning. Anna, the name hung in the air, trembling with all the years between them. She gripped the mop tighter, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have work to do." And just like that, she turned away. But David couldn't move. He stood frozen in the middle of his lobby, staring at the woman who had once broken his heart. Now a ghost from his past returned in the most unexpected way. And he knew one thing for certain: this was not where their story would end. Old scars resurface. The boardroom was loud with voices, executives debating numbers, growth, international expansion. David sat at the head of the table, but his mind wasn't there. All he could see was Anna, head bowed over a mop. The sound of her voice, "Mr. Hale," echoed in his ears like a wound reopening. He had once begged her never to call him by anything but his name. Now she couldn't even look at him. The sleepless night. That evening, David poured himself a glass of whiskey, staring out at the skyline his empire ruled. Yet for the first time in years, the city felt empty. He remembered the last night he saw her. Anna had been crying under the oak tree, her hands trembling as she pressed a folded note into his palm. "I can't do this," she whispered. Then she was gone. The note was still burned into his memory. "Don't look for me." And he had obeyed. Or maybe he had been too broken to try. But now fate had thrown her back into his life, reduced silent, wearing shame like a uniform. And the old scar throbbed like fresh pain. The questions. The next day he found himself lingering in the lobby longer than necessary, his eyes drifting toward the janitorial staff. Was she avoiding him? Did she hate him? Or was she hiding something deeper, something he had never understood about the night she left? He clenched his fists. David Hale had built his empire on knowledge, on never leaving a question unanswered. But when it came to Anna, he had lived with 17 years of silence. That silence was no longer bearable. The decision. As he walked back to his office, his reflection flashed in the glass walls, powerful, composed, untouchable. But inside, he was the boy again, heartbroken, desperate, craving the truth. And one thing became clear: he would not let her vanish again. Not this time. Digging into the past. David Hale was not a man who tolerated mysteries. In business, secrets were weapons and information was survival. But this Anna was more than business. This was 17 years of torment wrapped in one woman's silence. He needed answers. The discreet request. Late at night, he called Michael, his most trusted aide. "I want a background check." David ordered. "Anna Carter. Everything you can find. Where she's been, what she's been through, and don't breathe a word of this to anyone." Michael hesitated. "Anna Carter. From the cleaning staff." "Yes," David's voice dropped into steel. "And she is not just staff." The report. 2 days later, Michael slipped a thin file onto David's desk. David opened it, his hand steady, though his pulse was not. Inside, employment records, rental addresses, hospital visits. No husband, no partner. Years of moving from one low-paying job to another. Struggles stacked like debts. But then he froze. A birth certificate. His eyes widened at the name. Lily Carter, age 17. His heart slammed against his ribs. The dates aligned. The timing was exact. 17, David whispered. His hand trembled over the page. My God. Anna had a child. The realization, memories crashed over him, her tears that night. The note, the silence. All this time he had thought she abandoned him out of cruelty. But what if she had left to protect something bigger? Someone bigger. Our child. The words struck him like lightning. The restless night. That evening, David sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the skyline, but seeing only the face of a girl he had never met. 17 years. A daughter who had grown up without him. A family torn apart before it began. The anger burned deep at Anna for hiding this, at himself for not searching harder, at the universe for stealing those years. But beneath the fury, a new resolve hardened in his chest. He would not lose another day. Tomorrow he would confront Anna, and this time she could not hide from the truth. The confrontation. The storm breaks. David waited in the lobby that evening, not as the CEO, but as the man who had been haunted for 17 years. When Anna appeared, mop in hand, she froze at the sight of him standing there. Her instinct was to turn away, but his voice stopped her. "Anna, we need to talk." Her grip on the mop tightened. "I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Hale." The formality sliced through him. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't call me that. Not when you've been hiding my daughter from me." The truth forced out. The mop clattered to the ground. Her eyes wide in fear and fury mixing in a storm. "Who told you?" David's chest heaved. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I lost 17 years of her life, 17 years I'll never get back. And you let me believe you'd abandon me without a word." Anna's voice cracked, but she stood her ground. "I did what I had to do. You don't understand what it was like back then. The threats, the shame. I couldn't drag you into it." His eyes burned. "You think I would have walked away? You think I wouldn't have fought for you? For her?" Her tears spilled, then falling onto the marble floor she had been scrubbing only minutes ago. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was strong enough to do it alone." The shattering silence. For a long moment, the building seemed to hold its breath. The powerful CEO and the weary cleaner, standing in the wreckage of a love story, interrupted. Finally, David's voice softened. "Her name is Lily, isn't it?" Anna nodded, broken. David's fists unclenched. His tone shifted from anger to something far more dangerous, pleading. Anna, I need to meet her. She's my daughter. The crack in the wall. Anna shook her head fiercely, wiping her face. No, she doesn't know you. She doesn't need you confusing her life. She's mine, David. She's all I have. His reply was quiet, but unshakable. She's ours. The words made her flinch. Because deep down she knew, no matter how hard she had tried, she could never erase him from the story. That night, Anna left the building in silence. But her hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel of her old car, her chest torn open by the truth she could no longer bury. And David, he stood alone in the gleaming lobby of his empire, vowing that nothing, not even 17 lost years, would stop him from claiming his daughter. The daughter's discovery. The secret breaks. Anna tried to go on as if nothing had changed, but inside she was unraveling. Each night she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding with the weight of 17 years of lies pressing down on her. And then it happened. Lily came home from school one afternoon, dropped her backpack, and pulled a thin folder from the mail pile on the counter. It was a letter addressed in a sleek envelope from Hale Enterprises, David's company. "Mom," she asked, frowning, "why is the CEO of Hale Enterprises sending you mail?" Anna's stomach dropped. The name revealed. Lily tore the letter open before Anna could stop her. Inside was a short note, David's handwriting, steady but aching. "I deserve to know her. Please let me meet my daughter. David." Lily's eyes flicked up, confusion etched across her face. What does this mean?" Anna's lips trembled. "Lily, there's something I should have told you a long time ago." The storm inside the daughter. Lily's heart pounded as the truth spilled out about David, about the past, about the love story she had never been told. Her voice shook. "So all this time, my father was alive, successful, powerful, and you," she pointed at Anna, tears welling, "you kept him from me." Anna's face crumpled. "I did it to protect you, to protect him. I thought it was the only way." Lily's voice cracked with betrayal. "You thought lies were protection." She stormed into her room, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled on the wall. The first spark of rebellion. That night, when Anna finally fell into restless sleep, Lily sat awake in her bed, clutching the letter in her hands. Her mind swirled with anger, confusion, and a secret curiosity. David Hale, the man she had never met, but suddenly could not stop thinking about. And as dawn broke over the city, Lily made her choice. She would find him herself. The struggle for trust. The first meeting. It happened on a Wednesday evening. David was reviewing contracts when his secretary knocked on the door. "Sir, there's a young woman asking for you. Says her name is Lily Carter." David's pen slipped from his hand. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. When the door opened, she walked in, 17, sharp-eyed, carrying both defiance and fear in her stance. She was Anna's reflection, and yet something more, a fire all her own. David rose slowly, his voice cracked. "Lily." She folded her arms. "So it's true. You're my father." The raw wound. The silence between them burned. "I should have been there," David said, his chest heavy. "From your first steps, your first words, every scraped knee. And I wasn't. I'm sorry." Her eyes narrowed. "Sorry doesn't erase 17 years. David swallowed. "No. But maybe it can start the next 17. Lily's jaw clenched. "You're just a stranger with my DNA." The words cut him deeper than any business betrayal ever could. The fragile moment. And yet, as she turned to leave, her gaze flickered to a framed photo on his desk. David at 20, standing under an old oak tree. Anna beside him, smiling. Lily froze. "That's Mom. David's voice softened. Yes, that was the day we promised each other forever. For a heartbeat, Lily's defiance wavered. She saw something real in his eyes, not just wealth and power, but loss, regret, and love. She whispered, almost against her will, "Why didn't you come for me?" David's voice cracked. "Because I didn't know you existed. Until now." The fragile hope. Lily stood at the threshold, torn between anger and something far more dangerous, longing. "I don't forgive you," she muttered. "But maybe I want to know who you are." David's chest ached. "That's all I ask. Just give me the chance." She left without another word. But David knew the truth. Something had shifted. The wall between them had cracked, and through that fracture, light had begun to seep in. The past returns. The phone call. Anna's hands trembled as she answered the late-night ring. A voice she hadn't heard in years rasped through the receiver. "You thought you could hide forever, Anna. He knows. And if you don't pay me, the world will know too." Her stepfather. The man who had poisoned her teenage years. The reason she'd run away from David all those years ago. The sound of his laugh pulled her straight back into the darkness. The old fear. The next morning, David appeared at her apartment. He had seen the look in her eyes, the tension in her body, and knew something was wrong. "Tell me," he said firmly. She shook her head, trying to close the door. "No, David. You don't understand. If he comes back into this..." David blocked the door with his hand. His voice dropped steel beneath the calm. "Anna, I lost 17 years. I won't let anyone steal another day." "Who is it?" Her eyes filled with tears. "My stepfather. He said if I stayed with you, he'd ruin your scholarship, your future. He said no man would want me once I was pregnant. I was terrified. So I left." The words shattered David's chest. He saw it all clearly. Now her disappearance wasn't betrayal, it was sacrifice. She had destroyed her own happiness to protect him. The enemy resurfaces. 2 days later, David's security intercepted a man loitering near Anna's building, grizzled, bitter eyes glinting with greed. "You owe me," he sneered at Anna. "Years of silence, years of shame, and now you're tied to a billionaire. That deserves a payout." David's rage ignited. "You blackmailed her. You stole my daughter's childhood. And you think you can walk into our lives again." The man smirked. "Everything has a price." David's jaw clenched. Not them. Not anymore. The resolve. That night, David stood at the window of his office, city lights flickering beneath him. For the first time, the empire he'd built felt irrelevant. Anna's pain, Lily's trust, the years lost, those were the real battles. And he swore to himself the past would not win again. A new future, the final reckoning. David Hale was done being silent. The very next morning, he confronted Anna's stepfather in the lobby of his skyscraper, this time not as a frightened boy, but as a man with power, protection, and unshakable resolve. "You don't own her anymore," David said coldly, "and you'll never touch Lily's life. Leave, or I will make sure you spend the rest of your years wishing you had." The man sneered, but the arrogance in his eyes faltered when security closed in. He had no power left here. Not against David. Not against the truth. He was escorted out, his threats dissolving into the emptiness of the city. And just like that, the chains Anna had carried for decades finally snapped. The dinner table. That weekend, David sat in Anna's small kitchen. Lily was at the table too, arms crossed, suspicion still sharp in her eyes. But for the first time, they were together, not divided by lies, but tentatively connected by the truth. Anna served tea, her hands shaking as she placed the cups down. The silence was thick until Lily finally spoke. "So, what was Mom like when you were my age?" David smiled faintly. "Braver than me. Braver than anyone." Anna's cheeks flushed and Lily laughed despite herself. The ice cracked just a little. The proposal. Weeks passed. David showed up for Lily's school events, for dinners in Anna's kitchen, for the small, ordinary moments he had missed all his life. And one evening, standing on Anna's balcony with the city lights blazing below, he held out a small velvet box. Anna's breath caught. "David!" His voice was steady, filled with 17 years of loss and a lifetime of longing. "We lost time, Anna, but I don't want to lose another second. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes. Her answer was a whisper, but it carried the force of everything they had survived. Yes, the new beginning. Lily stepped out onto the balcony, rolling her eyes with a grin. "Finally. Took you two long enough." David wrapped his arm around both of them, pulling them close. And as the night stretched out before them, he realized his greatest fortune wasn't the empire of glass and steel he had built. It was this Anna by his side, Lily at his heart, and the promise of a future rebuilt from broken pieces. A family, at last.